Welcome back once more to another thrilling episode of Street Writers.
These are 10 minutes of writing motivation, inspiration, and activation.
Welcome to part 2 of our interview with Greg Monaco.
They beat us to the punch.
Admiring the craft or being jealous of it? I'm commonly jealous of you, Greg, how you look, how you write.
The feeling is mutual, Mr. Chester.
Tell us what you're jealous about.
There's a writer that I've been so fond of since my early days, and he's an old ad guy since passed, but he was famous in the 60s. His name was Howard Gossage. I don't know if you guys have heard of this guy. Mm-hmm. They call him the Socrates of San Francisco. So
that's awesome.
What was so cool about him is in the 60s, he was sort of the anti-Madison Avenue. This is like the heyday of Mad Men. Mm-hmm. So he was the West Coast version of it, really laid back, chill dude. And he had a very particular way of helping companies stick out in the kind of the mess and the clutter. And he worked for a petroleum company called FINA. I don't even know if they're still around. Mm-hmm. But this was the motto for FINA. And this kind of will give you a sense of like how interesting, unique a thinker this guy Howard Gossage was. So this is the motto. If you're driving down the road and you see a FINA station and it's on your side so you don't have to make a U-turn through traffic and there aren't 6 cars waiting and you need gas or something, please stop in. How amazing is that?
That's just like a beautiful invitation, like a pleasant time together on the road.
Wow.
That's awesome.
But what's so great about it is that there's no strategy. It's all tonal. It's all, and he's advertising a commodity. You and I can't tell the difference between the gas and the additives and the fillers from one to the next.
Right.
But what he's doing is he's accentuating that, and he's saying, we're not going to try and sell you on anything. We're just going to be pleasant people.
Yeah.
This is great. And I love there's that West Coast vibe. I think Plow is from the West Coast, and I remember shots of him in like kind of the sandals, the surfboard, and the long hippie beard and stuff. And I was always thinking, Lee Klaus. And I just was always thinking, man, what it would have been like to be working on the West Coast and doing that kind of cool stuff like the guy you just mentioned and that whole vibe, and thinking, does anybody do that? Can you ever sell that to a client today? Is it even possible?
I would say it is because, as you were reading that, Greg, and I can see why you admire it, it's so intimate. Like, I feel like he's sitting next to me in the passenger seat if I'm driving. And today that intimacy is so talked about constantly, about the way to connect with an audience on so many levels. And that's a whole different real me, real you way versus this gas was the most powerful gas on the planet with these additives, good for the environment, good for your car, going down a laundry list of stuff. Just like, hey, come check us out.
If you're on the right side of the road.
You're on the right side of the road.
And you need something or maybe gas. But the idea, Dan, is like, you know it, I know it, and Greg knows it. But when do you see those kind of commercials these days? Everything is new additive, new power and stuff. And it is a beautiful thing when somebody goes in a direction like that. It's just like, it's so gorgeous to hear.
Right?
Yes,
right.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's got their guard up.
Right.
Advertising coming that. And this is like, this takes it right down. And if you read, if you look him up and just Google Howard Gossage advertising, you will see all of his copy is very much in this. It's all long copy, and it's all just so inviting, and it's so interesting and fun.
I have to imagine that there's some degree of what you set this show up with in his own writing, that sense of just sitting down and letting it go, to be able to have a voice like that, as opposed to the things they were trying to kind of aim for and the goals of the client and whatever else. But there's such a realness to that I just have that sense he was sitting down and just like you were saying before, I'm just going to start writing, and I'm going to start ranting in one way or the other and see what kind of comes from that.
Yeah.
Very cool.
And you're doing some of that. I think I'm going to say I'm jealous of. You've been doing this series of videos where you go out on the road and you
DC, hang that thought, because we would like to get what Greg is up to anyways.
Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot I was on a podcast. So there we, I forgot we had a format. So thanks for inviting me on, Mark. What writing is knocking you out? Tell us about it at anchor.fm/streetwriters/message. Hit us with your best shot.
It's time to get in the ring with us.
I'm just going to do a shout out to these videos you've been doing, which I think are terrific.
What I'm doing is I'm taking all the brand skills and knowledge that I've built in the corporate world, and I'm bringing it on into personal branding. So I'm helping people tell their stories. And so as I'm a cyclist, and I'm out on the road, and your mind kind of wanders. And when inspiration hits, I'll actually pull over, take out my cell phone, and record these little videos, little tips, things that I think about while I'm on my treks out in nature. A minute-long little video. I post it up on social media. It seems to be creating some magnetism for what I'm trying to do.
It feels like the FINA copy. I mean, when I see them, and I think that's the beauty of any great stuff, is that it never feels forced. And I think that's what I get. And I love the idea, I'm a bicyclist as well, but I love, when that mind clears and it's like, you're just, in that almost like Zen-like state, and the thought comes, you just pull over and put it down. But when you present it, it's like you're sitting in the room, you're right next to me. It's like, hey, by the way, Mark, so I really think you've nailed it with that little series, like Dan said, and it just feels as natural as anything, and it doesn't feel like marketing or stuffy. Good stuff, man.
Oh, thanks, Mark. I appreciate that. Yeah.
Tell us what else you're up to, and where are you going?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I'm up to right now is it's so funny, we keep talking about West Coast here, but I have a West Coast friend who's a renowned meditation teacher. Mm-hmm. And he's got an organization called Future Self. He's got this incubator course. It's an online 8-week curriculum, but the idea behind it is through a meditative state, you actually get to meet your future self. So future Dan or the future Mark, and what are they like? And you actually have a conversation with this person.
That's crazy.
It's pretty cool. It's pretty amazing. His name is Peter Opperman. Anyway, when people manifest something new for themselves, that manifestation is really fragile when the idea is there. So what I'm doing is I'm aligning myself and my skills to help put story to what people are dreaming up for themselves. And what that does is it helps anchor it in reality. So when they're actually literally able to write down this future self in sort of a brand story for what they're trying to create for themselves, it becomes more real, and then it becomes less fragile. That's something that we're actually aligning right now on how we're going to be building a program together. So it's really interesting and fun work.
And your contribution to it sounds like you're helping people toward that, I'll say, storytelling or written actualization. Is that also an aspect of somewhat teaching people how to write?
It absolutely is a lesson in writing and a lesson in strategy. So there are very specific steps, and I've figured out a way to kind of break down step in the path. So it's coaching where we're one-on-one, but there's all kinds of things that you need to think about that are classic models in corporate branding. Like, who are you trying to engage? Who are you talking to? Who matters to you? And then we actually use the classic storytelling structure of the hero, villain, and passion. So if you were to think about the villain in your story, what are you out there trying to eradicate from the world? So these are really big ideas that we use. And then, how do we structure a story that talks about what the problem is out there, how you're solving it, and then what your vision of the future is. So they literally pop out of the process with a 100-word brand story to take with them, and it's their center of gravity for everything.
When are you guys going to have that ready to go?
We're doing it already.
Okay.
We actually did a prototype of it this past course, which ended last week. And come January, there's another course that's coming up. So it's interesting for Peter because his path, and if you were to look at the two paths, him as a meditation teacher and me as a brand development guy, the fact that we're actually kind of mixing and crossing is kind of strange in and of itself. When you're in the moment and you're seeing the transformations that Peter is creating in people, and the fact that those people are struggling with keeping those transformations alive,
right?
That's the work that I do. It really dovetails nicely.
Isn't that a great story in itself? You take two disparate elements and you put them in a room together, and whatever comes out of it is what the story is. So, your storytelling, even in what you're doing with your partner there. And this, of course, is all built on the fact that I desperately need your help because I have no idea what I'm doing. And I get a discount now, right? So.
Absolutely, Mark. We'll rewire you from the ground up, pal.
All right, Dan, I guess we should wrap, right?
We should wrap. That's it for this time out. Be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and connect with us at streetwriters.podcast@gmail.com.
Tell your friends to listen, and their friends too.
Take it to the streets.
And fight to write.
That sounded impressive. We'll use that all the time.